seasoned by that point.
Yes. Yes.
And what were you ready to say, Humphrey?
Yeah, absolutely. I think long-term care, as the doctor alluded to earlier, is the goal in these situations. You just don't want to put a Band-Aid on it because this person needs care that not just for the moment, but after that person is stabilized, what happens next. And I think that's key and critical in making sure that, that individual is healthy mentally as well as physically, and also the community is also healthy. And, so I echo both panel members or both guests. We need to refer out, make sure we have the right resources available, and refer out, and not just, as the caller stated, give a slip of paper with a bunch of resources on it. But, following up, with that person as well, even though, you dealt with that person just for that moment, but, making a follow-up visit with that person, making sure that person is on track with resources, I think is critical as well in terms of gaining a healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, definitely. Frank, if you're still on the line, did you have those incidences where you had to make those decisions with your relatives that you were facing those issues?
Oh, yeah. We had to commit my father a couple times, and he was retired Marine of 20 years and had retired as a senior enlisted man on an air base in South Carolina. So he was a successful professional, and his mental illness came later in his life. And so we had, he was, paranoid schizophrenic, so he thought my mom was shooting up drugs, thought that the guys at the American Legion post were putting poison in his coffee, things like that. And so we would have to marshal his brothers, who were the people he would most likely listen to persuade him that none of these things were really happening and that he needed to spend some time in the hospital to get his medication set to the right level. Yeah, so it's a very serious challenge, and the word that most comes to mind is exhausting, dealing with a family member who's mentally ill. And so if there's just one other person dealing with a mentally ill person, they're going to be worn down to a frazzle. And so it has to be, for it to be successful, it kind of has to be a group effort. And even then, it's not always going to be as successful. We were a family with some, we weren't rich or poor. We had enough resources and people to kind of weigh in, both with my father and my brother-in-law. But families with limited resources, that's where it becomes clear that, more needs to be done at the local, state, and federal level in helping people with mental health issues and addiction issues. And even with our family resources, it was like a horrible struggle to find the right doctor and to get the right medications and to get the right services in place. It was just this chaotic system. I mean, system, nothing against the people who work in mental health, but to use the word system is kind of misleading. It's just this chaotic bunch of islands of different services that don't always make it clear what's the best place for a family or friends to plug in and take care of these issues. So,
right. Quickly, go ahead.
Yeah, I think, that in that aspect, awareness is key with dealing with people with mental illness and substance use issues, and understanding that it's a disease and it's not that particular person's behavior. And knowing that, that can kind of alleviate some of the frustrations when dealing with persons that have substance use issues or mental illness. It is a disease, and getting and treating that disease, that should be the focal point as far as the awareness aspect and people dealing with those type situations.
Definitely. And we've only got about another 10 minutes, but I did want to get to something that Frank brought up as a separate topic and everything, but I just wanted to have a chance for him to expound on it and everything. do you think, and this is changing the topic somewhat, do you think that we will ever get rid of the Electoral College? And do you think that somebody other than a Democrat or a Republican will ever win president?
I missed the first part of your question. Sorry.
Will we ever get rid of the Electoral College? Because I know that's part of your discussion.
Yes.
And will there ever be anybody other than a Democrat or a Republican that wins the elections in the next century or so?
Yeah, I would be doubtful. Let me take the last one first. I'm doubtful that someone other than a Democrat or Republican will win the presidency in the next few decades. Who can say after that? Things could change radically. But I think the two parties kind of capture a lot of the thinking in this country and are flexible enough that if more people are wanting socialism, the Democratic Party will adapt to that. So I don't think there's going to be a socialist or a workers' party or a labor party or a green party that amounts to anything. If there were a labor party or a green party in this country that amounted to anything that had good practical sense, I would have joined them a long time ago. I find the Labor Party folks and the Green Party folks in this country are not pragmatic. They always want to run somebody for governor or president and then lose, when I advise them locally that, like, you need to run for nonpartisan seats like school board and city council and conservation district so that people can see what your candidates are capable of doing, and then you work up your way up the food chain. But as far as the Electoral College, yeah, that's a remnant of from the early days of the Founding Fathers who wanted to keep the slave-owning states, the pro-slavery states, satisfied. And so it really is not as democratic as it seems to be, and which is obviously the case if you can lose the popular vote in this country, but the Electoral College puts you in the White House, and there's, what kind of democracy do you actually have? Not a very good one, obviously. But getting rid of the Electoral College would take a change in the Constitution, an amendment. That's not likely to happen anytime soon. But there is a legal workaround because the Constitution says each state can assign their electors any way they want to. And so some states have seen that, and they've decided, well, we're going to assign our electors that they're going to vote for whoever wins the national popular vote, regardless of how the vote went in our state, because that's not the main thing. It's like it needs to be a nationwide vote. Our electors will support that person. And so if enough states had that rule in place in 2016, then Hillary would have won the presidency, would have got the White House. And right now there's about 13 states that have voted to do that. We need 6 or 7 more to vote to assign their electors that way. And then the Electoral College becomes irrelevant, and the winner of the popular vote goes to the White House, as should be the case in any kind of decent democracy. So hopefully that will continue to happen. People continue to work towards that change in the Electoral College.
Yeah, hopefully that will happen. That would be a great thing to see happen. Dr. Roy, I know that you were on the same conversation that I was yesterday with Neil talking about the 1619 project. So I think that as a way to close it out this show, since and I'll give a little bit of history on that, I was wondering if everybody had read that New York Times article and what they thought about it. Because basically the 1619 project, from what I understand and from what I was telling Dean earlier, was an effort to actually take our history, not from 1776, but from 1619, which is when the first slave ship came into town, and understand our history from that perspective, because then it radically changes things. And it also changes the ways that we view everything from policing to crime to drug addiction to even certain populations' addiction to sugar. So just some examples of what was featured in that article that was in the New York Times and everything. But I was just wondering if any of the panel members had read that article, knew of the 1619 project, and what they thought of it, and also in the answering of that, if you can also tell us a little bit about how people can reach you, because we've got about 6 minutes. So I'll start, since, like I said, Dr. Roy, I know that you caught the tail end of the conversation, so I'll start with you and work my way to Humphrey.
Yeah, so that I was a privilege to be part of that, or listen in on that conversation that Neil had with Sonny Slaughter and the 1619 Project. I am so proud and amazed that the New York Times did a full piece on the 1619 project. And look, I think my work at Rikers really is what introduced me to the idea of mass incarceration and the fact that mass incarceration is really modern day slavery and the intersection of that mass incarceration and addiction, and how Black Americans make up 13% of the U.S. population, 14% of drug users, but over 50% of those arrested for drug-related crimes. I mean, it's egregious, and this needs to stop. And as a healthcare professional and physician who speaks and writes and does a lot of media work, I'm trying to do my best to educate or to share what I've learned with as many people as possible. So yeah, that's my main comment there.
All right. Dr. Al, did you have a chance to look at the New York Times article on the 1619 project or hear anything about it? You being in New York and everything?
Yeah, I did not get a chance to read the article. However, I am familiar with the concept of the article and the whole 1619 concept. And I think it's amazing that the New York Times picked it up as well. And it shows that there is a lot of progress being made. And just having that article out there in, the atmosphere shows what I teach in my workshops to community members. Our people, minorities, African Americans, we've come a very long way. And although it may not seem that way at times, there has been tremendous progress made. And that progress comes from us getting involved. That progress comes from us not sitting on the sidelines and seeing what's going on, but getting involved in our community. And right now, policing is a very big issue. The criminal justice system and the reforms that are taking place are tremendous. And we need more people, more African-American youth, more minorities to get involved with the criminal justice system and make sure that the progress that has already been made continues to be made. We need communities to go to the police precinct meetings, the community meetings, everything. We need people to get involved and stay involved. That is the only way our progress is going to continue moving forward. I am doing a workshop for those listeners that live in New York, in the Long Island area. I'm doing a workshop called The Positive Interaction with Law Enforcement in Hempstead on August 30th. And we're going to discuss a lot of these issues and a lot of other issues that have been happening here in New York. I can be reached through my website, www.Titus That's Titus, Titus, consulting.com.
Thank you. And Humphrey? Humphrey, are you still there?
Yes, I think absolutely. I think the conversation today has been very enlightening, and I appreciate it in terms of bringing the awareness to the community on these issues of community policing, substance abuse awareness, as it relates to the medical field, in that, just having that awareness and dealing with situation brings a broadened perspective. And that's why, I started my company, Truett Security Assessments, Consultation, and Counseling Services, to bring awareness to these types of situations and areas. And the website is www.truettservices.net, and I have a contact link on that site as well. Thank you for having me tonight.
No problem.
And Mark,
Roy,
sorry about that. My contact information, people can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at LippyRoy. That's LIPIROY. And then my website is lippyroymd.com. And on Facebook, it's Spices for Life MD. But I'm always happy to be engaged and answer people's questions and address their issues and concerns.
Thank you. And Dr. Frank Hyman, how can one reach you? Try to give you a doctorate.
Yeah, the best way to reach me is my website, which is just my name. So it's www.frankhyman.com, and that's Hyman, Hyman, and